Today's guest is Laura Hai. She's a comedian, an actor, a really successful content creator, and an advocate for donor-conceived people. So welcome to Fertility Frontiers, Laura.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here.
I was thinking to get to know you, would you be okay doing a rapid fire questions?
Oh, of course.
Wonderful. So your goal would be to try to answer whenever you can in 1 or 2 words.
All right, deal.
Perfect. Where's your home for you right now?
New York City.
What's your go-to comfort show or movie?
Bob's Burgers.
What's one thing that instantly makes you laugh?
My dog.
Good one.
She's a pug. She's adorable.
That's awesome. Do you think of yourself more as a comedian, an actor, a creator, or an advocate?
I'm gonna say creator because I think that sort of encapsulates a few things because that kind of covers the comedy and the advocacy because I think they've melded so much together. So I'll go creator.
TikTok or stand-up comedy? Which one do you think it's harder?
Oh, stand-up comedy, hands down. TikTok, I can edit. I can't do that with stand-up. It's two entirely different beasts.
True. What is the weirdest or most unexpected DM you've ever gotten?
Oh my God. At this point, obviously, I've gotten a bunch of like sugar daddy requests. So those are always a little weird. Oh, I've gotten DMs. People have offered me their sperm. Yes. And I was like, no, know your audience.
Exactly.
Know
They
your audience,
definitely
dude.
didn't check your profile.
Nope, not happening, bro.
Okay, so what's one thing people misunderstand about you?
People misunderstand all the time that they believe I'm against donor conception. That it cannot be farther from the truth. And that's a big misconception I have to continually fight.
And what is something about being donor conceived that still catches people off guard?
I think the fact that I don't know how many siblings I have. I'm probably never gonna know how many siblings that I have. That always catches people off guard. Probably the biggest thing that catches people off guard though is fertility fraud. That usually is a big shocker. For anyone who doesn't know, fertility fraud is when a doctor intentionally switches out the chosen donor gametes for their own or any other that they feel like. We've caught 80 doctors doing this. None have gone to jail in the United States,
Mm,
which is terrifying. That takes everybody back. No matter what their frame of belief is, everyone takes a step back with that one.
100%. That is, I want to say disgusting. I don't even
Yeah.
know what word to use in English. It's my second language, but it just blows my mind, seriously.
Oh, yeah, it's terrifying. It's disgusting.
One word to describe your relationship with the fertility industry.
Tense. I think it's tense right now.
Okay. If you could pass one law tomorrow, what would it be?
Oh, it would be federal fertility fraud legislation. I would want to criminalize fertility fraud so that any doctor who does intentionally do that goes to jail. It's a form of sexual assault. They got to go to jail.
I think that you nailed it with that description. It is a form of sexual assault.
Absolutely.
So, what I wanted to get from this conversation is your point of view on the main key players for this. So, just to put this into context, there's multiple situations why someone would require a sperm donor or an egg donor. So, it might be a
Totally.
couple that is facing infertility, or maybe someone that wants to be a solo parent, or LGBTI community. A unique opportunity to speak with someone that is an advocate for donor conceived people. And I wanted to get your thoughts on multiple sections. So, first of all, what should we improve within the fertility industry? And then what would be your advices for intended parents? And what would you share with other people within the community of donor conceived people that maybe just found out that they were donor
Yeah.
conceived or that kind of thing? So starting with the fertility industry, which as you said, it's going to be like the most tense, probably part of the conversation. What are the key regulatory gaps that you think the fertility industry has ignored for too long?
Absolutely. I'm going to focus obviously on the United States. That's where I live. But also, the United States is the number one exporter in sperm. So the fact that we are as unregulated as we are affects every other nation because they all buy from us. So for me, the big gaps are one, obviously, as I said, fertility fraud legislation. That is, to me, a no-brainer. I do think there are nuanced conversations we need to have with donor conception. That is not one. That one is easy peasy. The United States needs to join the rest of the world and become an open ID at 18 country. We need to ban anonymity. I think it's ridiculous that it's taken us this long. We need to have a international family limit because we're selling sperm, we're selling eggs globally. So having these family limits per country, the United States doesn't even have a federal family limit, which is embarrassing as it is. But even if we did, which would be a good start, we still need an international limit. We need international laws because it is a global market. In 2022, the sperm donation market globally was worth $5.5 billion. This is an international trade. So I think international family limit, we desperately need to have some kind of law and regulation that involves updating medical history. The cryobanks, the clinics, whomever initially recruited the donor, they need to follow up with the donor. They need to get an updated medical history. I also think we need to have regulated counseling for donors and recipient parents. Now, the counselors need to be very well trained in terms of infertility trauma, LGBTQIA, single by choice parents. They need to be trained well because a lot of them are not. But with that, there needs to be very specific counseling because right now it's all over the map. There are still counselors in the United States who are telling parents, oh, you don't need to tell your kid that they're donor conceived, which is insane. That counselors in 2025 are still saying that. There needs to be evidence-based regulated educational materials because right now the cryobanks and the clinics are handing out biased and clinic-based educational materials. It needs to be evidence-based and it needs to be written by the collective. It needs to be written by fertility doctors. It needs to be written by donor conceived people, recipient parents, LGBTQIA advocates. Like it needs to be reproductive rights advocates. Like it needs to be a collective process that we all work on this. I do absolutely believe that siblings have a right to know each other. And I do think we need to have some kind of regulation in which they're able to get in touch. It's just dangerous. We don't live in a time where you sit and you live in your hometown for the rest of your life. People travel, they study abroad, their family goes on vacation, they go on a bachelorette party, or they move. And we have too many instances where siblings were at the same school, were childhood best friends, were neighbors who were studying abroad together. And then unfortunately, we do have real instances of accidental incest. We know siblings who dated in high school. We know siblings who got married and had kids. This isn't good for society, and obviously it's insanely traumatic for those people, but this is something we should be actively working against. This is where things get, I would say, complicated, and this is above my pay grade. But I do think there needs to be a regulation in terms of agreement as to what genetic tests we're doing. This isn't to say that we turn away donors for certain genetic conditions they have. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think there needs to be an agreed upon, like, these are the panels we're doing. Because at least in the United States, it's so sporadic and they're not all doing the same thing. And that does get very confusing for recipient parents.
Really relevant topics. My experience, because I have worked in multiple different countries, it's so different when you compare the US regulation versus Spain versus other places.
Oh,
But
God, yeah. Oh, something that Spain does that I would absolutely would want United States to do is we in the United States, we have to stop poaching and recruiting donors on college campuses. The advertising tactics are predatory of what the cryobanks do in the United States. They're not allowed to do that in Spain, which I so appreciate. But that is one thing in the United States that like I find to be like if you go on TikTok and you see how they're marketing themselves to teenagers, I find to be deplorable. So sorry to interrupt you, but that was one more regulation that the recruitment tactics I think are nasty.
Yeah, no, 100%. I would say that in Spain, we are still using anonymity for donors. And that's something that I also agree with you that we need to change the mentality. And I know that the main argument to be against sharing the identity of the donors is because they think that the number of donors is going to decrease. But I think that some countries like France switched to sharing the identity and they didn't have any impact.
Not only that, but the donors increased in France. One example that I always love to give in the United States is that we have a known donor matching agency called Seed Scout, where like the donors and the recipient parents meet ahead of time. They both have to consent to the match. I might be a little fuzzy on the numbers, but I think I'm getting it in the right ballpark. California Cryobank is I would say, probably second largest cryobank worldwide. Cryos is probably the largest. Last time I checked, California Cryobank actively had 550 active donors. Seed Scout has 660 active donors. 660. And these are known donors from birth. This isn't even open ID at 18. Known donors from birth, 660. We have more proof absolutely telling us. It was the same thing with Victoria, Australia. Their donor numbers increased when anonymity was banned. Same thing with France. And it's, to me, we have more than enough proof to show that donor anonymity actually goes up.
100%. And I was thinking also about the family limit. So, for example, in Spain, for each donor, you're supposed to have a limit of 6 people that is born from that donor. However, to my knowledge, I don't think that at the time there's any specific regulation to actually make sure that this is happening. So we're basically trusting the donor's word for it. So I want to get your thoughts on that. And also, what would be the limit that you would suggest?
Realistically, I think a 10 family limit is, I think that would be my compromising negotiating number that I would go to. I think that's a good number. But I think that there is a couple of ways in which we can help with ensuring the donors are actually keeping to it, and on top of which the cryobanks and everything are also doing it. I don't know what Spain's regulation is, but in the United States, you can be a sperm donor at 18. I think that is playing with fire. I think 18, 19-year-olds have absolutely, they're not mature enough to handle this decision. I do think there should be a worldwide, you can't donate sperm and eggs until you're 25 years old. I think they have to be more mature than that. I understand you are legally an adult at 18, but any of us who are certainly over 30 look at an 18-year-old and be like, no, you're still a child. I do think that having more mature donors will actively, they will make better decisions. I do think then they will listen to the counseling a lot more. They will take this a lot more seriously. And I do think when I mentioned before, like the counseling, I do think part of the counseling with recipient parents is really helping them understand why reporting the births is so imperative. And with that, the cryobanks also have a responsibility to follow up. Because I understand, like when you're pregnant, you have pregnancy brain and everything. So the cryobank should also be absolutely calling the donors and recipient parents and going like, hey, how'd it go? What happened? There needs to be much more work on the cryobank's end to ensure they're getting accurate numbers.
I think honestly, there's a huge portion of those companies that are just not putting the time on following up with the parents. But at the same time, I would say from my experience in doing different experiments for different reasons, when you're trying to collect live birth information, sometimes it's hard to reach out to the patients. I would say that it's tricky, but it's multiple layers and many things that needs to be solved. I guess my point is that every person has a responsibility to this.
And that's what I think really needs to be explained to the recipient parents. What I have watched in the United States, at least, is when the industry, how they treat the recipient parent is very almost patronizing in a way. Like they are just like, shh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. You don't have to worry. And it's very, we're going to take care of everything. And they don't ever really talk honestly with the parents. Whereas, like, most of the recipient parents I've ever talked to are fabulous people. They want to be great parents. They want to have the information to be good parents. But the industry is like treating them almost like children, and they're not giving them the education to really make the good decisions that I know these parents really want to make. I do think if there was a little bit more emphasis on the counseling, I do think that would go a long way. It's not perfect. This will never be 100% perfect, but we want to get as close to that 99 as we can.
I think another big piece of this is donors wanted to make money out of their donation. What are your thoughts on that?
This is a tough question. The question is, how do we cauterize the wound, and how do we do also long-term healing? What we have seen is what brings donor numbers down is lack of compensation. That we have seen. It's not anonymity, it's lack of compensation. And the issue, and this is where now, but on the flip side of this, paying somebody for their body parts is really not ethical. It gets really tricky. It gets pretty dangerous very fast. And we know that. And that's why so many countries are like, we're not paying for sperm or eggs or gametes. They're like, it's ethically, it's a mess. And they are right. In terms of the donor conceived community, the idea that we're treated as a commodity, as a transaction is not a fun feeling. And having people specifically go into it just for the money is also really bad as well. Then it's like their priorities, their morals with it are off, and they're not really understanding the morality of what they're doing. and this is where I struggle, and this is where I go into the gray and the nuance. If donor numbers are down, then what happens is parents go to the Facebook groups. They go to back alley donors. They go to the serial donors. And as much as I have issues with the fertility industry, serial donors scare me 10 times more. And that to me is much worse. It's in the same way, like, I don't want to compare this to abortion. I feel like that's wrong. But in the same way that we know of, like, if you make abortions illegal, it just means that people are going to get abortions in unsafe manner. It's the same thing with donor conception. If you made donor conception illegal or you brought down the number of donors, parents are just going to go and figure out unsafe ways to do it. I do think being cognizant and careful as to what makes donor numbers go down, what makes donor numbers go up. The other thing that people are like, we don't want to pay donors because we want altruistic donors, which totally makes sense. My only argument against that is it's not really a foolproof system because, as I said, the serial donors, they don't get paid. They don't do this for money. So it's not a foolproof system. So the answer is I personally, in the short run, think that what we need to do is keep donor numbers high. And I think we need to figure out, how do we actively get good donors? How do we attract the right donors? How do we counsel the right donors? That's what we're going to do. That's what we have to do right now, because we need to cauterize the wound caused by the serial donors, caused by the Facebook groups. And eventually, I would love to get to a place where we don't have to pay donors and they are coming in no problem, the numbers aren't down, and it's not feeding this like black market space. That is ideally what I'd like, but I also know it's very complicated, but it's a complicated question.
That is a tricky one. I'm thinking of intended parents. A lot of people is probably gonna agree with you, and they wouldn't want to have their children feeling some of the things that you have explained. But at the same time, they don't have any other option. Let's say that they are living in the United States and the fertility industry, as of right now, it is what it is. So what would you tell them?
I would tell them, I totally understand. And I really understand. I'm someone who struggles with infertility. It's really hard. It's very scary. The first thing that I would tell any couple looking into the fertility industry, if you are struggling with infertility, I would seek counseling first. Because unfortunately, the doctors in the United States really take advantage of that. In the same way with the LGBTQIA community, the doctors know that this is your only chance and there is a level of desperation, and they take advantage of that desperation. So I really would suggest to all couples, go get some counseling first, really make sure that you got your eyes on straight, because you have to be able to recognize those red flags. And what I would say to those recipient parents is that you got to remember, and I know this is not fun, it's uncomfortable, but every choice you make is going to affect your kid. This is half of their DNA. We can't get around that. And what I would urge recipient parents to do is, first, what I would suggest is really look within your own community. Do you have any person willing to donate that you have full communication access to? And this would involve you having a lawyer, them having representation, a contract, and you are following everything to the T and doing a legal donor conception. But I would first look at who's in your circle. Having that contact literally can save a kid's life. And we've seen that in our community. We've had deaths in our community because of that lack of contact. We've had kids go to the hospital because of that lack of contact. I'm asking a lot of emotional labor of you, but I can't tell you enough that in that emergency situation, it is worth every single minute you spent on this. Now, if that's not available to you, if that you are just like, I have nobody, I understand, then there are certain services in the United States that do offer known donors or open IDs at very young ages. I would recommend looking at those first. And I would really suggest to the recipient parents, demand it of the cryobanks. You have the purse strings. You have the most power before you purchase. Make your demands. Tell them what you want. This is your kid. If people are demanding a certain thing, then they're going to adjust. But I would say you have to understand that if you do go into the industry, you go to a big sperm bank, how I always phrase it is you're going on a roulette wheel. And sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And I can't give you any single guarantee that if you go to any of the big banks that everything is going to be fine. I can't. And that's why I really urge to see if you can possibly figure out a different method, because I've just been on the phone way too many times with recipient parents just crying because their kid is just got diagnosed with a life-shortening illness. I've done it too many times.
The only thing that I would, maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Play devil's advocate. Do it. I want to hear.
The only thought that crossed my mind when you were explaining about the counseling piece before going to the doctor. First of all, in my experience working with a lot of doctors, I would say there's some of them that I would say their practice and their clinic is profit driven. I've also met doctors whose ethics are 10 out of 10 and that they really do this because it's their passion, because they really want to help people get their families they desire. My fear with the counseling piece is I've seen some people on internet promoting themselves as counselors or chess that I know they don't have the right background. And I know sometimes there's sometimes our patients that have gone through infertility and they've learned a lot throughout the process. I'm sure that they play a positive role in part of the process when you want to feel heard, but I don't know if sometimes they are the right people to give you fertility, real evidence-based medical advice. And the problem that I see is that it could delay getting treatment because maybe they're encouraging you to change your diet and relax and all those things. And time and fertility treatments, it's crucial that they are tied together.
Let me clear that up. When I say counseling, I want somebody to go to a licensed therapist. If they're struggling with infertility, please go to a licensed therapist. I'm talking as somebody who's going through infertility. Like, absolutely. Now, I'm still actively seeking treatments. I'm talking to somebody and I'm still actively seeking treatments because I'm 37. Time ain't on my side right now. And even though like I've got really good numbers and everything's looking good, it's still a little scary. No, I completely agree with you. I don't think you should just like sit and not do anything. I think that while you're going through all of this, you also need to be able to talk to a professional and make sure that all of those fears, all of those worries, all of those dark thoughts that I know you're having, because I sure have them too, that you are talking to somebody.
For those parents that are using sperm or egg donors, they're in a situation they're considering if they should share the origin of the conception with their children, what would you tell them?
I would tell them do it. Absolutely. I can't tell you enough. It's going to be a load off your back. Take the pressure out of it. I promise it's not that big. The longer you wait, the bigger it gets. So tell them early. There are children's books now available that will literally in a child appropriate manner, because they'll talk about like the seed man, or they'll be like this special guy or special lady or special person. And it will make it so much easier. It will normalize it. The books will help you find the language, but tell them early. I promise, I cannot tell parents enough that it is going to be okay. The earlier you tell your child, they're like not even going to blink at it. The longer you wait, the bigger the impact and the more of the shock value it will have. I promise. I can't tell you enough. Your kid is not going to look at you differently. I'm not biologically related to my dad, and that man is my father. Not a day has gone by in my life since he is the one who told me that I've ever not looked at him as my dad. When anyone like refers to my donor as my dad, I don't like that. My dad is my dad. My donor is the donor. Biological father is as far as I like to go. But I promise you, and my dad and I have had like screaming matches, and I've never even had the thought of saying, "You're not my real dad." Like, never.
Maybe some people is listening to our conversation and they already have children conceived with donors, and maybe the kid is already like 15, 16, 17, 20 years old. What would you tell them?
Sure. If they haven't told their kids yet, what I would say is big breaths. You are going to make a plan of action right now. Either if it's just you as a solo parent or you with your partner, you are going to figure out how to tell your child at the next available opportunity in at least this next month. It is going to happen. And how you're going to do it is you are going to have a whatever drink of choice you need, and you're going to sit down with your kid and you are going to tell them that I'm very sorry that we have not told you this. We should have told you this sooner, but we need to tell you this now. Please know that we love you, and this was just hard and we just didn't know how to do it. But we used a sperm egg donor. I know this is a lot to take in, and please know that we are here to support you in whatever you want. So if you want to do a DNA test, you want to go see a genetic counselor, you want to go look for your sibling, we are here for that. In any measure you want, we are here to support you.
I love that. And I love that you're being able to provide very specific and actionable recommendations and advices. This is not just you talking about ethics in an ideal world, that it's like, this is how you should do it. And I think that you're, especially talking about the fertility industry as well, you're painting a picture that is very realistic. And so I feel like maybe 30 years ago, whenever we started using donors in our industry, we were just thinking of how can I help this patient get pregnant? But we weren't really thinking one step ahead of these children are actually going to become adults at some point. How are they going to feel? And I think that this conversation and everything that you're bringing up is gonna feel uncomfortable for a lot of us working in this, because but it's positive. I say this in a positive way because some things needs to feel uncomfortable for that to spark the change. So I hope that, and I'm feeling like that. Like I'm actually thinking of my days like working in a bank as well. I'm feeling guilty. Oh my God, like I contributed to that. But anyway, I think better late than never to try to understand and hear and learn.
Yeah. Look, I don't want anyone in the, like, I would say, I know so many amazing people in the fertility industry who want a better industry. Like they do, absolutely do. And I would say, look, I don't know a single person who hasn't made a mistake in their life. And to me, I don't really like to judge people on their mistakes. I judge people on what they do afterwards, how they handle it. And to me, that says far more about a person. And so if you're able to any of those doctors out there or embryologists who are like, God damn, I really wish I wish I zigged instead of zagged. Now you have the information and you can make appropriate actions, and it's okay. What I would suggest to any kind of fertility doctor, because this is an uncomfortable conversation I've had with a lot of them, is they really get squirmy when I refer to it as a fertility industry. They really hate it. And I would say I understand. I know that you are looking at, I'm helping my patient. That's not an industry. I'm being a doctor. And I hear that, but I do suggest that you take a step back and you really look at your entire field on how it's operating right now. It's not operating in a Hippocratic oath way. It's operating in a we need to pump out as many products as possible kind of way. And I know so many doctors fully believe in what they're doing. I believe in what they are doing. And I think it really takes doctors like you and any doctor who is listening to really step back and go, I want my industry to be the way that I practice. And we desperately need more doctors like you standing up, because you guys are going to be the ones making the biggest changes. You are the ones who have the head honcho's ears more than us. We are kicked to the curb on the sidewalk. You guys are in the house. And that would be the thing that I would really love the doctors to understand, that, like, I know that I'm not directly your patient, but I'm them in an indirect way. And I would love for my community to start being treated as that instead of just a receipt.
Everything that you're saying is reasonable. Who can deny all of the things that you're saying? I think that as an embryologist, it's like the same situation maybe for an intended parent, in that the fertility is what it is at this point. And even if you want to change it, you're part of it right now, but it's about getting the awareness first. And then, you know, once you have the awareness, you're more open to new ideas. You're more open to maybe choosing a clinic that has a better practice. You're more open to maybe listen, is someone proposing a new regulation? Is there any initiative that I could join? So there's things to do, that's for sure.
Literally just the small change of tell your patients to tell your children early. Have a list of children's books that you offer your patients, your recipient parents. That you're like, here's a list of children's books that we love that are great to tell your kids. That alone changes everything. That is a huge step in the right direction right there. If you have a clinic or a cryobank that does have a counselor, make sure that counselor is LGBTQIA trained. Make sure they're trained to talk to single by choice parents. Make sure they're aware of infertility trauma. Unfortunately, in the United States, the amount of the clinics who claim to be LGBTQIA friendly and then the counselors say homophobic things to the recipient parents is numerous. I would say really vet your lab techs. vet anyone who has access to those gametes, because we have found that it's not just the doctors switching out the donor sperm. We also have just the people who are working in the building. So really vet everybody very
Yes.
carefully. It's
Yeah.
terrifying, I know, and it's absolutely terrifying, but I can't suggest it enough. But baby steps, everybody. You don't have to change the world. It's just baby steps with good intentions.
I wanted to get your thoughts on from the two other sides of it, which would be
Yeah.
donor conceived people, maybe someone that has just learned that they're donor conceived
Yeah.
and that they're like trying to get going through that journey. What would you tell them?
If you have just found out you're donor conceived, hang in there. It's going to be okay. I know that this was a pretty big shock to the system. I would say let it come in waves. There's going to be a lot of revelations coming as time goes by. I would suggest that when you're ready, and I would do this sooner than later, connect to your community. The donor conceived community is not a community in which you want to be a part of, but it is some of the best people I've ever met. They are very protective of each other and they are very there for each other. And when we're together, it feels like we speak our own language. I have never felt so understood or seen as I do when I'm with my donor conceived friends. It's magic. Every donor conceived person I've talked to has said that connecting to the community has been so healing. So I would really suggest finding the community, find the online forums, and connect to us. If you can't find them, DM me and I'll help you. Yeah, I would say that would be the number one. And just know that it's going to be okay. It really will. I know that you're probably having a lot of oh my God moments, and I promise it gets better.
And is there any advice that you would give them when it comes to trying to seek information about the medical records from their donors? What do you
Sure.
think that they should be doing?
I would say, obviously, it's going to be different for every country. If you live in an open ID at 18 country, it's going to be significantly easier for you. If you live in a place like the United States, welcome to the jungle. It's going to be a little harder. I would suggest definitely if your parents used an anonymous donor, a donor that you cannot find, I would suggest going to a licensed genetic counselor. Get those like basic panels done. I do think it's great. I did it. Absolutely worth the money. You find out some good stuff. I know they're a little controversial, but I do think you should do Ancestry. I think that connecting to biological family members is, again, it's life-saving. This doesn't mean you have to go to their house for summer vacation. You don't have to have a relationship with these people if that's not what you want. Absolutely. But I want you to have that information, because what we have had happen in our community is donor conceived people connect to the donors or the family members later on in life and find out, oh, by the way, we found out we have reoccurring brain cancer in our family. Like a ton of people have had it, or heart failure is really common. So that's why I can't suggest enough. Please do it, because that's just happened so much. And getting that information could not only save your life, it could save your child's life, and it could save you years of testing.
I want to talk a little bit about the donors as well.
Yeah.
Especially, and you raised a really good point, because when someone is making a donation and they are 18 years old, I don't think that they're
Yeah.
really thinking on the long-term impact and the responsibility
No,
of donating. So,
not at
what
all.
would you tell the donors? What would you love that they understand about the impact of their decision?
I would tell them you're making a biological child. And that's apparently news to a lot of donors. I've spoken to a few egg donors who were shocked when I told them, you understand that the donor conceived person is your biological child. And they literally went, no, I'm not. They took my egg and they put in the parent's DNA. It's not my genetic child. I know. So when I say we need counseling, I mean we need. There are donors walking around here who have genuinely no idea how basic reproduction works. So I do think that I would really say to the donors, this is your biological child. They are genetically no different than a child that you have with your spouse. They are genetically no different. And therefore, they deserve the same respect. They deserve a medical history, and they deserve at least basic questions answered. These are real sentient human beings, and if you profited off of their creation, you especially owe them basic information. It would absolutely be the right ethical moral thing. And for anyone who is always, because this is always like the donor's main concern, they're like, what if they come after my money? What if they come after my inheritance? They can't. They literally can't do that. That's never happened. Shush, go do the right thing.
It just blew my mind. Like sometimes I think that we give for granted that people know things. And for us, we talk about fertility every day. So that it didn't even cross my mind that they would not know that. So I think that's another good thing to keep in mind
cross
and do proper
my mind
counseling.
either. I didn't think what I was saying was groundbreaking, but apparently it was. There are recipient parents who don't understand that the donor is the biological parent. There are recipient parents who believe that if they're carrying their egg donor conceived child, that makes them the biological parent, and now their medical history is their child. And I'm like, it's really scary, the lack of education. And I would really emphasize to doctors out there, you got to emphasize with your patients to make sure that they understand how basic reproduction works.
This is touching again one of the tricky parts, because some of the donors donate because they need the money, and that's a reality. So what would you tell someone that they need the money and they're considering doing the donation, but maybe after listening to you, they feel this is not the right thing to do, just if my only goal is to make profits out of it?
There's many other ways to make money. If that's your goal, go find a job, go wait tables, go be a bartender. You can make money many other ways. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this involves the creation of sentient human beings. If your only goal is to make money, go make money somewhere else. Go sell fidget spinners on YouTube. You can make money anywhere else. If your first intention isn't, I want to help families, and then, oh, bonus, I get money, then walk away. This isn't for you.
And then on the other side, let's say that we're using this platform to try to find the right donors. What would you tell them?
I would say if you want to help families out you want to help out the queer community, you want to help out single by choice parents, you want to help out couples struggling with infertility, absolutely, 100%. You need to, though, there's a couple of things you need to ask yourself is you are going to have biological children in the world. Are you comfortable genuinely that they're going to be raised by somebody else? Are you, because you are not, and you're not an active parent. You're not, and that is a very fine line. You have no say in how they're raised. Are you comfortable with that? Now, I think that places like, as I mentioned before, the agency Seed Scout, one of the things that I like is both the donor and the recipient parent have to consent to the match. So the donors actually have a lot of power, and they can say, I really like these people, they share my values, I'm comfortable with them raising my biological child. I think that for donors, find places like that. Find places where you do have some autonomy, you do have some say, because that is your biological child. You should feel comfortable. You should feel like they're safe, and you should feel like they're in a good family.
I'm also thinking of maybe donors that they have already donated years ago, and now they're considering, I never took on my responsibility to update about my medical records or made myself available to be found. What could they do?
I would say if your clinic or cryobank is still open, obviously call and be like, hey, I'd like to update my records. Now, we know that the clinics and cryobanks don't always do that. But what I would suggest to you is just get on Ancestry, make a profile, put on your profile, I'm a donor and I'm available for contact, and leave it at that. When you get matched with a donor conceived child, you let them message you first. You do not ever message them first. That is, I would say, you have to respect that boundary. The only time where I think a donor should reach out first is if you have emergency medical information. That's the only time. If it is, shit, I just got diagnosed with heart failure, I have a pacemaker, they need to start getting tested as teenagers. Okay, go call, absolutely, tell the kid immediately. But I would say then make yourself available and just be patient and see. And maybe none of the kids are going to want to reach out to you, which is more than fine. That is their choice. But maybe some of the kids are going to be just a little interested to learn a little bit about you, get the updated medical history, and that'll be it. And it's honestly, we hear so much that it's a lovely, wonderful, fulfilling experience. We've heard of the recipient parents and donors talking, and it's lovely, and it's like a happy little friendship. I would say it's never too late. Yeah, hop on. Go do it. Go spit in a tube.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Is there anything else that you think is missing that you would like add?
I would say, and this would be something I would really want, I'd love the industry to understand this in terms of my goals. And I do think that a lot of the advocates feel the same way. So my parents struggled with infertility, both of them did. And I listened to my mom and my dad talk about their struggles, and I really learned, heard, and empathized with what they were going through. And I think about, and my mom especially was like, she was made to be a mom. Like, this woman is like the best mom in the entire world. And I get very upset when I think about how the doctor really took advantage of that desperation. And that really upsets me. And all the parents I talk to are just, they're lovely people. They're so sweet. The reason that I do what I do is because I care so heavily about fertility care. I fully believe in fertility care. And I look at the fertility industry and I think this should be literally the industry of hope. It should be the industry of dreams. Everybody should be skipping around and it should be rainbows and sunshine. This should be literally, you're making a family. It should be such an amazing, wonderful experience. And the fact that it's not is so upsetting to me. The fact that doctors are not educating the parents enough, they're not doing ethical practices, the donors are getting taken advantage of is so needless. I want my dream fertility industry. I want what I do believe most fertility doctors envision in their heads. That's what I want. I want something that is patient-centered, and the reason that I fight as hard as I do is because I believe we can do it. I think it is well within in the world of complicated problems, this isn't one of them. We can fix this. This is well within our grasp. And I would want everybody, whoever listens to me, to understand that I get so excited when I talk to happy recipient parents and happy donor conceived kids, and I see the families are growing beautifully and everything's wonderful. And I just don't want the industry or any parent to ever mistake what I'm doing or what any other advocate's doing for anything less than that. We want this so much to work. And I do believe what we're offering will make it work even better.
I can only tell you that I joined you in your dream. I really do.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I'm only one person in a very big world, but I will carry your words in my heart. They really made a difference, and you really made me
Thank
think.
you.
And just in learning about you and reading your interviews and seeing what you do on social media, I feel like I learn a lot.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I really thank you. I thank you for being here and your honesty and your advocacy. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. And I really mean it. Even like everyone can make a difference. Small changes matter. You don't have to change the world. And I promise the small acts of kindness and progress go so much farther than you think. And I can't tell you enough how much it means to my community when doctors like you reach out to us and they're like, we want to hear from you. That changes everything for us. So thank you, because it's so healing for us.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.